great. Thanks very much, and panel members for that very insightful and reflective discussion. There was a lot of engagement in the chat. People talked about their role models. Some were family members, others were people from their careers, male, female, etc. So good. What we want to do for about 10 minutes is spend some time with the panel members. And Anne, we have a few questions that came up in the chat. So I'll raise them, and there's still an opportunity to maybe post one or two more questions for people who just watched that really inspirational discussion. So good. So I'll kick off. I'll ask Louise this question, and then the others can add to it, right? So this morning, we had a lot of conversation around data and, the fact that data is important. But I also see, debate online around, having targets like percentage females on boards, etc. So what's your view on how do we balance this? And what's your view on targets around representation versus, making sure that it's equitable? So maybe Louise?
Hi, yeah, no, what a great conversation that was. It was just brilliant. So, I'm really glad that everybody enjoyed that as much as I did taking part in it. It was such a privilege. So yeah, data and targets. Traditionally, I've never been a targets driven person, but actually as I've gone forward in terms of my journey, and particularly as I've been, a massive advocate for supporting women and inclusion within our sector, I've kind of changed my mind a little bit. And actually I've got some stats which IOSH have pulled together around some of this, and IOSH have just tipped over the 49,000 members, and within that we have 21% are women. Now, I think I joined IOSH in 1999. I've actually been a member of the CIH since 1988. But I'm pretty sure that stat has hardly shifted. The other statistic that they've given me, and I'm just looking at my crib sheet here, is in terms of chartered fellows, 16.8% are women. So what that means is as we move up membership grades, we've got statistically fewer women. So actually the stats are starting to tell us a story. And part of what I want to do is that we need to shift that dial in terms of how many women we've got in our membership, but we also need to shift the dial in respect of women that are at chartered or fellow status. And so the stats are telling us a story. So I'm starting to change my perspective on this and starting to say, you know what, we need to measure it, we need to monitor it, we need to be active in how we push this forward. And just having these conversations with all of us, we can all promote that equally. So I think in terms of statistics, we need to start using those stats.
Okay, thanks. Christl or Christine, any further insights from your point of view?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I agree with everything Louise said, and I think it's really important, that diversity of the board, right? That, just like we talked about in the workplace, greater diversity is going to give people, you're going to have diversity of experience, diversity of thought, diversity of things, the skill sets and the strategies that they have. So I do think that's an important number. And similar to Louise, the numbers at ASSP, the number of female professionals, I don't have the exact numbers with me, but are not nowhere near 50%, right? And when I started in this field, it was a very male dominated field, and really still is, although looking at the representation here today, it's fantastic. So just my thoughts on that.
Thanks.
If I could offer one thing, I think it would be that whenever you set targets on specific groups, for example, women or people of color or something along those, whenever you set those types of targets, they can cloud your purpose. So you really need to be mindful of why you're pushing this. Like, what is this goal all about? Why? And that's the big thing for me, is just to be mindful of what the purpose is of setting that target before you go hog wild and achieve it.
Oh, thanks. Good. I'm watching the time, but there were a couple more questions. So maybe one for all of you all, and then one for Anne as she moderated the panel. So for the panelists, what did you learn from each other during the course of this panel discussion? What was the one thing?
That's an easy one. We are very, 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 very similar people. Louise is nodding, and I think that's the one thing that I walked away from personally so grateful that, yeah, we're very similar people.
Louise?
Yeah, I mean, do you know something? I think it's, you know, we've all worked incredibly hard to become president. It's not something that's just been handed to us. And, you know, we question, we definitely have the same drive behind us. We all are completely dedicated to what we're doing. But I think we all wanted to show our vulnerability in those discussions, and I don't feel that I'm alone in having those feelings, and perhaps I hadn't necessarily articulated them. But yeah, I completely agree. It's the similarities absolutely shone through, and you know, our challenges are the same. The way that we approach success is the same, and actually, you know, I think anybody on this call will probably recognize everything that we're saying. So it's, yeah, it was definitely our similarities. And you know, I feel like I've you know, I knew everybody anyway, but just, you know, I feel like I can lift up the telephone if I need to, which is great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I agree with everything they said. You know, just we all knew each other, who we were and stuff ahead of time, and we had talked before and things like that, but really getting to dig into some of the questions was amazing to think about how we've all gone through similar struggles, right? And we all have similar desires, and we're all very passionate, and we're all very driven. And I think that really came through in our conversation, and really we're all very supportive, right? We want to support each other. We want to support other women in the profession. And hopefully that came through as well.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think it is true that this is the first time that we have females leading these 5 organizations at the same time. So, you know, that's really good, and hopefully it's not the only time. So Anne, last question to you. You know, you moderated this panel. What would be the biggest insight you got from the panel discussion?
Oh, well, there isn't just one, I don't think, but it really, I was just having a think about how it's impacted me being able to sit in that sort of company and learn of all the similarities and the differences that, you know, we've experienced during our careers, and how it made me realize that, you know, for so many years I was pretty insular actually as a health and safety professional. You know, there were people who did things that kind of penetrated a little bit, and you think, oh, that was quite impressive. But actually it's only really in the last, well, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years that I've really noticed how some of my peer group are really rising to the top of what they're doing, and you know, I'm starting to celebrate much more with them that success that they've had. And I think being, you know, I was sat in a corner minding my own business really, and then Louise turned this spotlight of OneWish onto me and said, well, come on, you know, you can be part of this as well, you know, you can join in. And since then, like, the world has opened up to this, to the point where now I'm moderating a panel like this and learning an absolute 1,000 times more than I've learned just sitting, you know, occasionally logging into LinkedIn or whatever it is and being quite passive about the whole thing. So I think, you know, there's no one thing, but the overall impression of being able to sit down with these women and learn and be inspired by and challenge myself over some of the things that they've said has been an absolute blessing. It really has. And thank you all again for allowing me to learn from you.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, it really does show the importance of inclusion, collaboration, etc. So, okay, so before we close off, what's the one last thought from each of the panel members here with us today? So, Christl?
Trust yourself. If you've got a dream and you've got a desire, go for it. Just go for it, because you're not measured by your failures. You know, it's how you move forward, and you can do it. And there's lots of support. Like I look at all the Hollywood squares in front of me, and there's tons of support. Just reach out.
Okay, Christine?
Yeah, you know, I said it during the conversation, but celebrate your successes, set your goals, move forward, you know, take little steps. You don't have to be the president tomorrow, right? But set those goals for yourself and take those challenges. And again, just celebrate your steps along the way, because there's so much good we do. And I think we are always looking for the next thing, that taking a step back and realizing how much you've already done is really helpful.
Thanks. And Louise?
Yeah, I mean, from this panel, you know, we have around the world a joint goal, and you know, we've always said in OneWish we're stronger together. So it's just let's focus on moving forward and, you know, what we want to achieve, which is a healthier and safer world of work, and just keep moving forward and take that support and camaraderie from across the board, because I think we showed that all of our organisations are all out there to achieve the same thing. So yeah, it was such a privilege to be part of this, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christl, for your leadership, your passion and commitment to this profession, but you know, to the world, because I really do think our profession makes a real positive difference to everyone. So thank you so much. Thanks, Anne, for your great facilitation. And as just a reminder for everyone, all of these recordings will be available on our website and YouTube channel. So if you want to go back through them and get inspiration.